Hey, this is Amy with Flower Moxie. I'm really excited about this tutorial. I'm going to be working with a holly chapel egg, and this is a 4-inch egg. I'm going to be creating a bridal bouquet with it. It feels really small, but I'll show you kind of how it works. They have it in 6-inch, but right now I can only get the 4, so that's what we're selling on our DIY supply site. They are a little bit spendy. I mean, not super expensive, but if you want an alternative idea, you can make pretty much the same thing out of chicken wire. This one's a little large and in charge, and I made this for like a cascade bouquet. So that's kind of what I was thinking when I made this. That's why it's kind of an awkward shape rather than just an egg. But today we're going to be using this holly chapel egg. Let's see, why do I use an egg? What is the purpose in terms of using some mechanics to make a bouquet versus hand building? The biggest thing for me is it's really, it provides really great structure and support. And why I would reach for this as a florist, or why you should reach for it as a DIYer, is if you're building something like a tropical bouquet. Today I'm working with a lot of dried elements, things that are a little bit heavy. And so when you start trying to hand build with these really rigid things that are kind of awkward to work with, as a designer, I sit and fuss with it, where these chapel eggs, it creates this support, so it's easier to work with those more awkward pieces. Additionally, I think it's very helpful for new designers and DIYers, because when you're new to hand build, things just kind of, it's like a black hole. Things just start falling in on themselves. And I like my bouquets to have air and breathing room. So a lot of times if I'm hand building, things kind of start falling in and I have to readjust it because I don't want them to get so crowded. And I do find that I use less product with this because I don't have to pack it in so much, and you do run out of cage real estate. So your placement's important. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so I'm working with some spears, dried things, some fresh flowers, kind of like this boho palette. I'm gonna go ahead and get started with the spear. And it's kind of hard when you get started because you have to hold the egg and the cage at the same time. But once you add a few stems, then my hand placement shifts and I'm just supporting the stems with my hands. Okay, so let's bring this at an angle. So kind of supporting that cage, holding that stem. It's tricky to get started, I just said that. I'm gonna try to get my big awkward pieces out of the way. Okay, it's flipping around on me. I'm not worried about that. Okay. And let's add some bigger pieces. That way it's just becomes easier to hold. So I'm gonna throw this quicksand in. Just a heads up, I forgot to order my quicksand, so I had to pick them up this morning. So I just got these a few hours ago, put them in warm water. Quicksands blow out quick. That does not mean that they're not gonna last. That's just the nature of this particular rose. So we get so many emails of like, I got my quicksands, they're already open, it's only been a few hours, it's fine. I reflex this guy. Okay, I'm just trying to get some of these like a little bit more anchor pieces out of the way. You know, I always like to start with the larger, thicker stemmed items, work my way down into the thinner stemmed items. Super important, forgot to mention it, very clean stems. You don't want any leaves. If there's a little nodule or bump, then clip it off, because it will make your life so much easier when you're trying to adjust these. So I'm gonna sink this guy down low, and now I'm gonna shift my hand placement and just hold on to my stems. Okay, now it's getting a little bit easier. Let's try some of this pampas grass. Pampas can naturally be pretty sheddy. If you're a florist, they have this stuff called petal proofer. That's kind of like hairspray, but if you're a DIYer, just get some cheap hairspray, spray it down on your pampas and it won't shed as much. Just a little tip. So what's nice is we can come in at these really sharp angles, and this chapel egg is really supporting that. This I'm excited about. We're gonna start selling this in bulk. This is a Lynette Cremone. It's like this perfect terracotta color. And it's all year. A lot of times those like terracotta, earthier tones are more available in the fall, but this one we can get all year. So see how this dried is a little bit more awkward to work with? That's why this cage is so nice. So what I'm doing now is I'm starting to look in the mirror and to observe my placement on things. And these cushions are kind of a thicker stemmed flower, which I'm kind of having regrets about that. I might pull them out. Thin stemmed works really nice on these cages. So these are some Terracotta Carnations. They look a little bit pinker than they normally do. They're definitely terracotta, but anytime you're dealing with fancy carnations, sometimes they come in really, really sandy and beigey. Other times they'll have like more of like a dusty or peachy pink, which I absolutely love. And let's see if I can add another spear. I don't want to be over the top with them. It's kind of falling in on itself. That's okay, I'm not stressing. I can easily pull these up and adjust. Once you start working with this, you'll see why it's kind of difficult with these bigger dried items. It's not a problem, you just have to be patient. Just don't let yourself get flustered. And so at this point, just to make my life a little bit easier, sometimes I don't automatically just drive stuff down into this. I will hold it, face the mirror. Let me get this readjusted. And I start positioning things on where I think it should go before I place it. Just kind of helps me see it before I commit and have to fool with removing it. Lisianthus, mini carnations, ranunculus, they're nice because they do have those thinner stems. And so now that I have these anchor pieces, I'm coming back with these lighter pieces and the reason why I like to put the big guys in first is it creates the stability, creates my overall shape, and then I don't have to worry about the delicate things getting damaged as I'm driving in those heavier pieces. So I have a little bit of a hole right there. I'm okay with that. We can fill that in. And one thing like with this boho, I think if you're working with a lot of dried, little sprigs of baby's breath will help with those holes. It will help with hiding the mechanics of this cage. And it's really nice texture. I'm kind of funny when it comes to baby's breath. I feel like it works really nicely with this boho though. Ooh, I like that. Okay, so I'm probably gonna have to cut this guy down. And that's why it's so nice to look in the mirror and hold it before you commit to the placement. Yeah, I think this is nice layering. So if you can imagine, if I didn't have this structure, trying to deal with these like floppy dried palms, it isn't easy. So this is why this egg is so nice. And I don't know if I can keep this third one, but I'm gonna try. I'm okay that it's at an awkward angle. I don't want them to all fan out right in the same plane, showing their entire face, because I feel like it will be too much visually. So it's okay to like slightly have them turned, I feel. Okay, let me spin it around so I can look at it. You can see I'm coming in at the back, finding where I have like some cage real estate and trying to fill it out a little bit. So now I want to create a little bit of unusual shape. I like these ranunculus, these kind of nicer flowers, to be my dancers. And just as a heads up, I did have to wire most of these ranunculus. So if you're a ranunculus fan, fantastic. You're just going to need some straight floral wire, because a lot of times the heads will bend under their own weight. So if that doesn't interest you, then just get Lisianthus instead and spray roses. This right here is some brown Lisianthus. I've reflexed it a bit. I love brown Lizzie, especially for like boho, terracotta. I will say there's quite a bit of variation in the color that it comes in. So this one truly looks more brown and sandy. Sometimes it can like look more of like a plum burgundy. If that scares you, then stay away from it, because it does have some variation. That's not quite the angle that I want, so gonna reposition it. I have to move slower when I'm working with this, and it's because when I'm hand building, I can just grab a hold of it, easily pull it out. When you're using a cage and you're having to thread it through, it just takes a little bit more, just more commitment. So I'm not as quick to just like willy-nilly throw something in there. Let's see. I feel, let's see here. Pampas is kind of hard to work with in bouquets. What you want to avoid is doing this. This like looks like angel wings. If you like this look, it's totally fine. I usually only place one pampas in my arrangements. I kind of feel, I don't know, what do you guys think? No, they're shaking their head. There's a question mark, there's a either way, and then there's a hard no, so. This little brown. And I get to the point where I have to hold it up and see where I can place it. Ooh, want to show you this. See that little ridge right there? That will be a nightmare. So before I place that, I want to cut that off. That's what I'm talking about when it comes to clean stems. So I didn't catch that before. But that will hook on the cage, and if I'm trying to adjust that placement, it will not move, and then I'll pull too hard and break it. So clean stems is definitely a must. Ooh, I like that guy. He's kind of all curvy, doing his own thing. All right, I'm liking it. Let's elevate this Terracotta Carnation, drive this white one down a little bit. Okay, what do we do to cover up the mechanics? Great question. We're gonna need to backfill. When you're working with a fresh bouquet with greenery, it's a little bit easier because you can just stuff the greenery in. DIYing it, you're not really going to see this, so if you don't want to spend a lot of time covering up your mechanics, then as long as you can't You can move with it and change your position in the mirror. As long as you don't see it, it's probably not going to show up in any of your photos. If you're a florist, you probably do more want to hide your mechanics. Okay, so what I would do is come back in with these little pieces of baby's breath, and I probably wouldn't do it until I hand it off to the bride. You can glue it. You can just keep the stems long enough to thread it in. That way you can make sure you bind it off, but something kind of subtle down low. You can even take this bleached baby's breath. It's definitely not as full, doesn't provide as much coverage, but it does work. So I would come in and just find those opportunities to drive it into that bouquet to just cover up my mechanics. But again, like, you really can't see it too much. But florists, you know, it's our job to cover everything. When you're DIYing, you can fudge it a bit. When it comes to dried, a lot of times the stems can be really short. For instance, this tinted leather leaf, you know, this is too much to put into a bouquet. So I'm just gonna cut these individual stems off, which is great, but it doesn't leave you with a lot of stems. So you can either buddy tape it to something, but because it's dry, you can put a little bit of floral adhesive or hot glue on this, let it dry for a second to where it's, you know, tacky, and then you can just, you know, manually insert and just hand place those little pieces. And at the very end, we can come in with our super thin stemmed items, like this bleached bunny tail grass, which I love. Okay. These snap really easily, so you have to kind of be careful, and this is why we don't want to put it in until the very, very end. Got these pink little happy flowers, which they're super tiny, but they do show up. They're like these perfect little dancers. I don't mind this guy hanging out all on his own, being all awkward. I'm gonna keep it. We'll just give him a buddy. Come on, find your way. I can sit and hand place these for forever. My videographer's like, come on, get on with it. Okay, so how are we gonna tie this off? Great question. What we probably don't want to use is a zip tie. Reason being is this is a hot mess. The flowers are not, or I'm sorry, the stems are not going all in one direction. So a zip tie is gonna be way too harsh. What I prefer to use is a rubber band. And so we're gonna cut this down. I think this is a really nice length. You can even go a little bit shorter, but definitely don't go longer. You want your client, or if you're the bride or groom, you want to be able to hold this and work with it. So what we're gonna do with the rubber band is we're gonna find the strongest stem, which for me will be this dried spear. And I hook it. So you can see how it's hooked. We're gonna take it up to the point of intersection, and we're gonna wrap the entire rubber band around the stems, not my finger, and we're gonna hook the same really strong stem. So I do this often. I'll usually use like a rose stem. Those are really nice. So it's holding it without putting too much pressure on it. Okay, so I have a front and a back, and I put my rubber band on, and now I'm gonna put my ribbon on. So I usually set it to where it hangs off the end of the table. This guy's so awkward because I put it at an angle. I think it's probably best to cut this one shorter. And this is a really nice earthy color. So this is like a silk chiffon ribbon, very light, very drapey. I like working with this or the double face satin. We sell the double face satin. This I purchased off of Amazon. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna come over the top like it's a present and bring the sides up, and we can just tie a knot or a sloppy bow. But I don't do this, especially with this ribbon, until I get to the venue and I'm about to hand off the bouquet. If you try to do this in advance at your studio or at home, you're gonna get your ribbon wet, and this stuff does not come back from getting wet. At this point, you need really, really sharp scissors. Nothing is more maddening than trying to cut your ribbon and it's just fraying on you. So everybody works with me knows that I have like ribbon shears, and they are not to use them for anything but fabric. And I love this so much, I would probably layer this. So I would come back in with probably a different color. And so I might put two colors that were similar. So I'd probably put two colors that are similar, layer it in. I think that it complements the bouquet without distracting. It kind of goes with the overall feeling of it. And yeah, this is one of my favorite ways to make a bouquet, is to use a cage or a chicken wire cage. Creates that stability, holds things in place. Kind of hard to get it started. You just have to go slow and be patient with it, but it's perfect for tropicals, dried, anytime you're working with something, you know, large and awkward. And if you notice with this rubber band, I can still come back and adjust. So once I'm all done, I can come back and say, okay, I want to bring this guy up and he's holding. So that's that nice thing about that rubber band versus using a zip tie to tie it off. Thank you so much for joining us. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. If this video helped you in any way, then don't forget to like and subscribe. That really helps our channel and allows me to make more tutorials and educational videos to help you. And please feel free to leave requests. Visit us at flowermoxie.com, and thank you so much.